In this lesson, we're now going to take a look at expressing with the mouth. And as I do this example drawing here, we want to keep in mind how round the front of the mouth is. In Module 3, we did cover this, but I just want to remind us that on a top view here, the jaw will come out something like that. In the 3/4 view, it will come out something like this, before it goes into the cheekbone. And it is very round. It's very cylindrical. Well, it's more or less half a cylinder. All right, so we want to keep in mind that the structure of the skeleton is very much half a cylinder in this area. And that means that typically speaking, our mouth line is wrapping around that structure. All right, it's wrapping around. So we never want to draw a mouth in a way that the mouth is kind of just like a flat line like that. All right. And we want to make sure that we are putting the most focus on the lower line of the upper lip and making this read very clearly, right? So the line that I'm actually drawing here is the lower line of the upper lip. And if I add in a few other lines, we can get a full lip structure fairly quickly. But I want to be imagining that I'm drawing the lower line of the upper lip and ensuring that it wraps around the form correctly. Now, of course, when we're dealing with lips, we can remember that we do have some other lines to put in here based on the angle of the character, of course, which would indicate some of the lip anatomy or the sections or the dynamic forms of those lips. But our focus is that we want to keep this line very dark, especially for the purposes of expression, because this is the line that reads. And the reason it's dark actually is the upper lip does this is a side view, and then the lower lip comes down like that. And so a shadow gets cast. Generally, we're lit from the top. A shadow gets cast down here, and so it appears to be really dark. So that's kind of one of the reasons why it's quite dark. Now, moving on from this, the most important, well, one of the most important features of expressing with the mouth are the corners of the mouth, which we want to indicate with little sort of ovular dots. Okay, and you can indicate them in many ways. You can shade it or what have you, but you want to make sure the corners of the mouth read clearly. Let me draw in some eyes here, just some quick eyes. So in this instance, as I manipulate the corners of the mouth, the character could be smiling if I do this, point them up, or the character could be frowning a little bit unhappy. Notice the effect that it has on the expression. Or the character could be quite neutral, right? So here I'm adjusting the corners of the mouth to kind of just be straight out. So think very carefully about the corners of the mouth and where they appear to be. Whether the mouth is open or closed, this would still apply. All right, so the corners of the mouth are a key point. Let's get some notes going here. First note, we want the upper lip's lower line to be nice and dark, right? Because this is what's going to help us read the expression very clearly. The second thing is the corners of the mouth imply expression, right? And this is also why you want to not do the very basic thing of going happy character, neutral character, sad character. Because yes, while the mouth can move in some of these positions, generally speaking, it's the corners of the mouth that are reading. And we also want to remember our roundness of the mouth. The mouth is always really going to wrap around. So with just a single line like this, yes, the character may look to be smiling, but when we add in the corners of the mouth, we can drastically change that expression. All right. And usually there's three positions: down, neutral, or up. All right. So the corners of the mouth are very, very important. Now, something else we need to be aware of, let's make this a little bit smaller, is the movement of the jaw. And this is where squash and stretch comes into play as well. So if we have a character here who is neutral, just going to draw a neutral expression here. And then the very same character next to that character who is in, perhaps let's just say, shock. They're a little bit shocked or what have you. We don't just want to draw a mouth like that as a basic indicator of their shockness. We want to remember that upper lip line as well. But we want to imagine the jaw moving down to accommodate the expression. All right. And so we need to indicate a significant drop in instances of these extreme expressions, right? Because of course that mechanism inside the mouth is going from closed to open. All right. And so we're going to see parts moving, right? We're going to see parts moving. And we need to be aware that we want to stretch the skin. So keep this in mind. It's a very easy mistake to make where you're taking a character, you're changing their expression, they're in shock, they're doing something really hectic with their mouths, right? And we're not moving the jawline at all. All right, so be aware that you want to move the jawline when you're doing big open mouth expressions. All right. Now we also want to be aware that lips can move independently of the jaw as well. And we can get a bunch of different shapes happening with the lips. And then when you combine the jaw movement and the lip movement, you start to get the mouth expressions themselves. So let's look at opening the mouth expressions, looking first at normal open expressions. So normal open expressions are really when our lips are kind of opening from various degrees without any major expression happening. Maybe the character is breathing or they're about to speak, but we have this type of normal opening happening, and we may see a few teeth in there, which usually we'll just indicate with a line also curving, thinking of the jaw, just kind of curving around, and we'll see some of the front teeth. All right. And we can then open this normal position to various degrees. So it could be quite open. Perhaps the character is about to take a bite of food. That's another example where we might want to use the normal open position a bit more. And we simply kind of keep this top lip line at a fairly neutral position. It's not bending in any particular ways. And we're just opening the lower lip more as the jaw moves down. All right. So these are kind of our normal open positions. Then we get our circular open positions, which are things like kissing and whistling and making cooing noises and anything that causes us to have our lips move in a more of a circular shape. And what this causes is the lip line itself to kind of start moving in more of a triangular shape, with the lower lip taking a very round shape. So this is more of a wider circular opening here. Almost like the person's going, oh, or something like that. And then a kissing shape takes on more of an overall circular shape with a lot of compression happening between the lips. And a smaller circular opening here. You can see I drew a circle in my planning for it so that I can really get that circular feeling happening. And this would be more of a kissing circular shape. All right, so those are our circular openings of the lips. And a lot of the times, there will always be a combination of the jaw and the lips moving together. But of course, kissing can just be the lips to a large extent with a slight jaw movement. All right, whistling is very similar as well. So the whistling and the kiss type of lips, this circular structure is really very similar. And then we have very wide openings. All right. So wide openings are yelling, singing, showing teeth, gritting teeth in an angry kind of way, where we're really showing a lot of the interior of the mouth. All right. So wide openings, we tend to open the mouth really widely, well, obviously, and we tend to stretch out the top lips shape and the lower lip shape really wide. So perhaps in this instance, we're doing a very big smile. Let's make this a little bit smaller. Or if someone is singing, they'll have a very round look to their lips. Once again, I'll do a large circle type of feeling here to really get that breadth of the circularity happening. So it's very round. And you'll see a lot of their teeth anatomy in this sense. Probably their other features of their dentistry in their mouth, but very circular based. All right, for singing. And then a gritting the teeth type of lip movement doesn't really have the jaw moving much, but the mouth tends to take on this type of shape, which I'll draw first, and then I'll draw in my upper lip line to reflect what is happening. There. Right, but always ensure that the upper lip line overlaps the lower lip line. Here you can see the overlap shape of the T shape overlap. The upper lip line always overlaps the lower lip line, so keep that in mind. You always want these overlaps to show. So here we have normal opening. Here we have circular opening. And here we have wide opening. All right. So just going over that again, we want to keep in mind the upper lip's lower line to be dark. It's our main line read. So when you're doing your planning drawings, you really can just draw in this line and come in later if you want to and open a little bit, being sure to adjust the jawline, right, to accommodate the movement of the mouth. We want to be very aware of the corners of the mouth for expression, right? Make sure they're clear, make sure you can see them. Okay, they make a huge, huge difference. It's one of the key secrets to expressing with the mouth is the corners of the mouth. And then we also want to be very aware of our jaw movement and our squash and stretch related to that. And really just be logical when you're thinking about the squash and stretch. What is going to move? Well, the skin on the cheeks is going to move. The skin on the side of the jaw is going to move. The mouth is going to open wider as the jaw goes lower and so forth. So just really be logical about it. And then we want to be aware of these three sort of types of opening: normal openings, circular openings, and wide openings. All right, there's one more topic that we want to look at when we're talking about the mouth, because as we know in the overview lesson at the beginning of this module, when one thing moves on the face, usually related to the mouth, other things move as well. Now, of course, you can take this into varying levels of detail, but we're going to look at a key area of movement that really affects characters' faces. And that key area of movement, in fact, let me just take all of these guys because I just need a little bit more space here. That key area of movement for us is the cheek movement. So here I'm going to draw this character's face out. And we're going to give this rough character drawing a big smile. All right, let's keep things basic here. Okay, here's our eyes. So typically we might do something like this. We're focusing on our darker lip line there, and we're putting in our corners of our mouth, very important. And we're drawing in the lower lip line, and we're going for a nice big smile here. Right? And we're going to adjust the chin a little bit and stretch out the skin as the character's smiling. And what happens is we start getting this compression as these muscles pull this way and this way. We start getting a compression happening in the cheeks. Now, if I don't show this compression, we have what is called a fake smile, right? So the character's eyes kind of stay fairly neutral, and the smile is happening, but the eyes aren't indicating that they're affected by the smile, right? And this is called a fake smile. And a lot of the movie stars, when they're on the red carpet, will perform a fake smile because, you know, they're kind of probably tired of smiling after a while for the cameras, and they're not that happy anymore. They're not actually genuinely happy. So this is a fake smile. You can see this guy right here. He already looks like a salesman of some sort. Okay, like he's trying to sell you something. He looks a little bit sinister, right? But when we indicate the cheek compression by adding a line or adjusting the bottom eye line, the smile starts to look very convincing. All right, let's modify the eye lines of this particular character, the lower eyelid line. And our character now has a much more convincing and believable smile. Right? It's a real smile. He looks genuinely happy because we've indicated this compression happening. Now, usually, depending on the style you're drawing, you may or may not want to draw in the compression lines that happen here from the nose, marking out the front of the mouth, moving up and compressing as well. But you can, because it will enhance that smile, because you're showing that, all right, the cheek that was once sort of more flat in structure, kind of like this, is now kind of being compressed into this ball section, and it is now much rounder. All right. So be aware of that. That is one of the key things that we want to do when we want to show real smiles, that the cheeks are in fact compressing. If you don't do the cheek compression on the smile looks fake. And because we're so good at reading expressions as human beings, and we're so good at reading the emotions from those expressions, your viewer may not fully realize it, but they are, if you haven't drawn in these lower lines, something about the image will tell them that it is a fake smile, right? And if that's not your intention, you don't want to have that detract from the quality of your work, right? So we go back to using all the buffalo. This is one of those little things that make a huge amount of difference. And, you know, I think in general, a lot of things in art are lots of little things that all build up to make really impressive and useful works at the end of the day. All right, so that is pretty much that for expressing with the mouth. Let's not forget upper lips, lower line to be dark, the corners of the mouth and how pivotally important that is, the normal, circular, and wide openings, and of course, our cheek compression occurring here, particularly modifying the lower eyelid line a little bit in a graphic sense. See you guys in the next lesson.